Today, I'm going to be trying the London for the first time ever. Never played this opening. Let's see if it's any good. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over the board chess player, and in this series, we're going from 1500 to 2000 ELO in chess.com rapid games, where I'll be explaining my thought process as best as I possibly can for your education and entertainment. I know many of you have been asking for a London system, so I'm going to do my best. And I could go for the Jobava London, and I suppose I will. I mean, I literally have no idea how to play this, but I am very good playing the Karo Khan, and some of the lines can be relatively similar. I mean, of course, putting the knight on c3 does change things significantly from a Karo Khan when you have the move c3 on the board. But I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult. The London is known to be a relatively simplistic opening. Not simplistic necessarily, but like easy to play, practical opening. So we'll see if that's the case. Let's put it to the test. And I mean, as far as I'm aware, the main idea of knight to c3 is to potentially team up with the bishop on c7, just apply pressure to d5. I don't think we're trying to go e4. I believe we're just trying to go like e3, knight f3 sort of things. So, okay, my opponent goes a6, stopping any knight to b5 ideas, which makes sense. I'm sure a lot of you in the comments are going to be telling me, oh, that's a bad move because of some obscure g4 or something. I don't know. But I don't really see a problem with just going knight to f3. If my opponent wants to make a pawn move on the flank of the board, I'll happily just develop my pieces, get more pieces out, play e3, maybe bishop d3 to offer a bishop trade. I assume can't be bad. We could whack our knight on e5 at some point if we really want to, but I don't see the point in rushing that. I think in some of these lines, maybe I was supposed to play f3 to play e4 or g4. I'm not particularly sure. I don't see a problem with e3 though, and I think we can meet e6 with knight to h4, going after this bishop. And then once we win this bishop, then we can go bishop d3, avoiding a trade of the light squared bishops and getting, yeah, bishop knight to h4 looks really strong. Looks really, really strong, because if we can win this bishop, we go bishop d3, and we can apply some really good pressure to the king side. We also, because our queen opens up on g4, could try for g4, g5 ideas. I'm not concerned about the alignment of the queen with the knight, because if this knight ever moves, I'll just take the bishop. Of course, you have to be aware of bishop to g4, hitting our queen. But there, I think I'm happy to play f3, bishop h5, g4. Although then maybe black has knight takes g4, opening up an attack on my knight. Very interesting. Very interesting. Like I said, I don't know these lines. Okay, bishop back to g6 though. I think I'm just gonna take it. I mean, I'm not all that concerned about the rook opening up on the h file. I don't think that's a massive deal. And bishop d3 looks natural. Bishop e2 also looks good. We could throw in g4, but I don't see a point just yet. Although, maybe black is going to try to play knight h5 and do what I did to his bishop and try to win it. Yeah, maybe that's annoying. Maybe we should go h3 to give my bishop a hidey hole. Also, I suppose it reduces the power of the rook because, I mean, h2 is defended by pieces, whereas h3 is defended by another pawn. This does, to be fair, look like a pretty pleasant position. Okay. Bishop d6, offering me a bishop trade. I think queen f3 looks pretty natural here. Although I could also go bishop g5, declining the bishop trade in a different way, pinning this. If bishop g5, rook h5, hitting the bishop, that is actually quite annoying. I could play h4, but I don't really want to. Although maybe h4 followed by bishop e2 is good. Yeah, I think that's okay. I think I have the bishop pair, right? So if I can, I'd like to hold on to the bishop pair. The thing is, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing with my knight. That's my gripe with the position. I don't understand what the purpose of this knight is, so please educate me in the comments. That'd be great. And if you're enjoying the video so far, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. The support on the channel has been insane recently. So, okay, yeah, rook h5 is played. But see, I think we can just go for h4, protecting the bishop. We're preparing bishop e2 to kick the rook away, so we just develop with tempo. And also, black now can't castle kingside. I mean, he could just run his king over and kind of castle by hand, but then this rook, is it that good a piece? I don't know. It's difficult to say. Maybe bishop e2 prepares ideas of h5 breaking through on the king side because this knight is pinned and therefore can't play a role in the defense. Wow, that is a move. That is a move. A king to d7? What? I don't understand that. I do not understand that. Okay. Well, we can go bishop e2 or we can go g4. Right. I think both of them are very viable. Which one is better? Difficult to say. g4, rook h8. I mean, rook h7 can also be played, but let's say rook h8. I don't like the fact the pawn is hit, although it is defended for the time being. I think I prefer bishop e2, because I can always play g4 if I want, but I also reserve the right to play g3 to defend the h4 pawn if I need to. And because we've gotten rid of black's light squared bishop by taking on g6, even if I play g3 and leave all these light squared holes in my position, how is black going to exploit that without a light squared bishop, right? We have the only light squared bishop on the board, and if g3 is played, we can plant it on f3 and just watch all of the weaknesses, right? So I don't think that's particularly a problem. We also don't have to commit to castling just yet. I think that we can be more flexible with that. We could go queen d2, go queenside. We could go kingside still, although, you know, with the open h file, it's a little bit dangerous. Or we could just leave the king in the center, which is a perfectly valid option. Yeah, I can't explain the move king d7. I don't understand that. I don't understand the move, to be honest. What's wrong with, like, knight b to d7? Am I missing something? Is e4 a problem? I don't know. Bishop e2? Rook back? Maybe my opponent was scared of h5 there. Maybe that was the issue. But still, I mean, I don't see how the king's any safer. We have a really cool move here. Bishop g4. Pinning the pawn to the king and threatening knight takes d5, where the knight can't take because of this, and the pawn can't take because of this. Bishop g4. If bishop e7, unpinning the knight, we could take. But is that just a trick move? Is that a trick move, or does it actually have substance? That's what we need to figure out. Am I just setting a silly trap? Can my opponent just play the move c6? I mean, he can, but then his knight can't develop, although the king can go to c7 and the knight to d7. So bishop to g4, c6 is the line I want to look at. Maybe I can play e4 there. If take, bishop e7... I don't particularly like that. I don't particularly like that, because black is forcing trades. I don't want trades. So what about the immediate e4? Take, bishop e7. Maybe take... No, I don't really want to trade everything, though. I don't want to trade everything. What about bishop to f3? What about bishop to f3? Preparing e4. That I think I like. Because then if my knight comes here and the bishop retreats to e7, my knight is defended. So I could play a move like bishop back to f4, and if we trade on e4, we only have one trade, we maintain the bishop pair. Okay, c6 played. I think e4 should be a no-brainer now that we've prepared it adequately. Of course, e5 is the threat to fork the minor pieces, so black needs to respond to that. Either he can drop the bishop back, in which case we have many options. We could take and try and go c4. We could push e5 anyway. Not sure I like pushing e5 anyway. We could even just go bishop to d6. Sorry, bishop to f4, which looks really strong. Basically saying, okay, thank you for this really strong diagonal. I love the look of this move, by the way. Here. Does h4 fall? Let's say rook takes. Yes, it does. But we do have knight c5 check after the trades. King back to c8, defending b7. Do we have a follow-up? Maybe c4? Or c3, preparing queen b3? I feel like the bishop is just stranded over here. Okay, so bishop back to f4 is one option. Another option is to take, but just something like knight takes, and I don't see what we're accomplishing there. We could also just do something different, but I don't want to facilitate too many trades. So I think I'm actually going to drop the bishop back to f4, claim this diagonal. The whole point is that you now can't go bishop to d6 because of the move e5. Although, bishop d6, e5, bishop to c7, if take then take. Can take on g7? You can't do this because of take, and promotion. But bishop d6, e5, bishop c7. That still looks good, though. Okay, queen to b6. Black counterattacks. Very bold. Very bold. Alright. So, that is not a move I considered, but I think we can just go queen to d2? Or maybe not. Queen d2, take, queen b2 is a little bit annoying. What about knight to a4? Knight a4, queen a5, c3. b5. Knight c5, bishop c5, dc5. Well, then e4 is falling. Oh, no, it isn't, because of this. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. What other options do we have? We could push e5, but this just looks like it's losing. Yeah, the queen is not getting trapped anytime soon. If a3, trying to trap the queen. Queen b2, knight a4, there is queen to b5, and I don't have a bishop monitoring the b5 square. So the queen escapes scot-free, I think. I can try c4. If queen takes, knight b6 check picks up the queen. But if d takes... Rook... Oh no, rook b1 is actually really strong there. Maybe there's checks on b4 though. That's really complicated. a3. Queen to b1. Sorry, queen b2. And knight a4. Queen b5. c4. Oh no, there's no bishop to b4 check because a3 covers b4. c4. D takes. Rook b1. That looks crushing. This is a bit of a risky play. And maybe black can just take on e4. That might just ruin my plan. Oh no, that might ruin the plan. Although, actually no, because if takes, Then I have rook to b1, and I don't have to worry about my knight hanging, because my knight has traded itself off. So then I have rook b7. Although there is queen to c3 check, bishop d2 takes on d4. Then I have rook to b7 check, king here. I pick up the bishop, so king d8, defending the bishop. And then I have bishop to a5 check, picking up the queen. This is very complicated. Okay, I think this is the easier line, though. Because knight a4. The reason you play a3 is, 1, to stop the queen going to a3, and 2, to monitor the b4 square. It's a very common trope when you sacrifice the b2 pawn. And I'm basically trying to claim that it's a poisoned pawn. Yeah, I think c4 is really strong. But, actually... Oh, wait, no, there's checks here. Oh, no, I need to go c4. I need to go c4. Yeah. Because if I don't go c4, then the knight is unprotected. So c4 should be forced. This is a crazy position. This is a crazy position. I mean, like, so many things are going on. The point is the queen can't take because of knight to b6. And if the pawn takes, then rook to b1 is pretty strong. Queen a5 check, bishop to d2, queen back to c7, defending b8. But then I have knight b6 check, picking up the rook. And I guess one of the biggest issues in the black position is that this knight really should be on the d7 square, not the king. 1, to connect the rooks, 2, to defend b6, which I think is going to be a vital square. Okay, I think I think I may be changing my rather negative opinion on the London system, because I've often considered it to be a boring opening, but this is anything but boring. Okay, let's go bishop to d2. Of course, we have to make sure this comes with tempo on the queen. My bishop gets taken off of this lovely diagonal, but, you know. Okay, well, actually, no. Queen c7, I don't have an immediate knockout, because the queen covers the b6 square. But I have options. Queen b6, I mean... Sorry, queen c7. Firstly, I could take on d5, trying to open the c file. Okay, queen back there I didn't consider. I assume just rook b1, which threatens rook b7 and knight to b6 now, because that's defended. I think queen c7 had to be played. Because then rook to b1 only threatens knight to b6, which you can try and deal with, because rook b7 wouldn't be a threat, whereas now it is. I bet the computer is going to have an absolute field day telling me and my opponent that we're both idiots, but let's be fair, this is my first time playing the London system, like, ever, so let's give me some grace, please. Yeah, so that is a move. It does defend b7, and knight to b6 no longer picks up the rook in the corner. So it does defend, but it doesn't feel like it's a long-term solution. It feels like a very short-term solution. Okay, how are we going to continue? We could give this check, but I feel like that just helps the black king escape and prepare knight b to d7, which black wants to play regardless. So what else can we do? a3 is hanging, but I mean, I don't care that much, I don't think. We could go e5, which seems to force the move knight to e4. I mean, you could go knight to h5, but then your knight's out of the game. So e5, knight e4, if take... It's not so simple. I'd love to go knight c5 check, but the bishop monitors that square quite well. Okay, what if I take? If takes... I'm not sure I'm doing anything. Take. Queen g4 check. King back to e8. Have I achieved anything? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Check. King back. Is bishop to a5 interesting? I don't think so. Because the bishop's undefended for a start. So although I'm aligning with the queen, my knight can't move with check because the king's on a light square. So that doesn't seem to work. What about bishop to b4? Trying to remove this bishop from the defense and prepare this. It's an interesting concept. Because that prepares knight to c5. If bishop here, though, just this. Yeah. And then where's my light squared bishop going? That I couldn't tell you. Could not tell you. I feel like I should be playing pawn e5. Because this seems like a constant problem. So let's start with pawn e5. As I said before, let's say the knight moves to g8 or something, and my opponent goes after the h4 pawn. I'm not really concerned, because the bishop is going to end up on h4, which allows me to go knight to c5 check, because the bishop no longer guards this diagonal. So that I'm not fussed about. I also don't like the idea of taking on d5, because when c takes, it gives my opponent the c6 square for his knight, and I don't want to help him develop, of course. That would be a little bit silly. Okay. I'm expecting knight to e4, in which case I feel like I should trade. And then I have options. Maybe bishop b4 is an option. Maybe knight e4 take, knight to b6, king e8, c5, preparing knight c4, knight d6. Maybe, but again, it doesn't feel all that impressive. Maybe bishop to a5, preparing knight c4, defending the bishop, and knight d6. Also interesting. As I said, not too fussed about this pawn. I think I need to snap the knight because it's too strong. And my bishop, there's so many pawns on light squares. My bishop wasn't a great piece anyway. Okay. Now, can we go d5 is the question I want to ask. Trying to tear open the king's position. I don't think so. I don't think we can get away with that. We could go queen g4, which is an interesting idea. To not only hit e4, but try and prepare d5, because the e-pawn is pinned. That's not terrible. Queen g4. How does black respond? Let's say bishop to a3. d5. Okay, no, let's say king to e8. Well, then I think I just take on e4, and the material is equal. Rook here, bishop here. Then I'm down a pawn. It's unclear how I'm going to continue. All very interesting. Okay, what if I give this check? King goes to e8. d4 is under attack. Bishop a5, maybe? Again, I'm not thrilled with that. Not thrilled. I'm sure there were opportunities for me to have gotten a better position out of this, but then again, the rook on a7 is dismal. Dismal. What about h5? Well, I'm not threatening anything, because I can't take because of takes, so, don't love that. I think queen g4 is the best I can come up with. And I'm not overly concerned about my a-pawn. If black wants to go take that, he can go ahead. I do, however, think that winning this e-pawn may be important because, I don't know, maybe f5 ideas are annoying in the future. If f5 now, then we'll just take en passant and then take on e4. So that's not a problem. And that heavily weakens e6 and g6, which is obviously useful. Obviously useful. It wouldn't make sense, I don't think, to take on g6 if f5, because then this pawn chain is actually quite strong. So I can't allow a pawn to f5. No way. Yeah, see, this I'm not concerned about. This I'm not concerned about. We're going to trade. The point is that the bishop has to take, so no queen trade is offered. And so I can take here, but I can also give this check now, which I feel like I should do. But I can also play d5, which also looks good. Just tearing open the position. If d5 king retreats, d6 looks pretty killer. D5 king, or I could just take on e6 though, which is probably even better. If I give this check, king back to e8, can I take on e6? If queen here, then I can take here with check. Also, the bishop hangs. So here, knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. If queen e7, I can't find a good way to go about that. If bishop e7, again, I can't find a good way to go about that. So I think d5. I think d5. Also, this does open up the opportunity of bishop to e3 in some lines to go after the rook and potentially try to force it back and either get rook b7 or knight to b6 in. But we do have to be aware that bishop to e3 would allow queen to a5 check, picking up the knight. So we have to be very careful. I think this bishop is just offside, though. The bishop is out of the game. It's not defending the squares that it ought to be defending, and it's just a liability for this queen to protect. My opponent is currently up 2 pawns, but then again, one of them is about to fall, and his knight and rook are completely out of the game. Completely out of the game. This is a very difficult position for black. Very difficult position. If cd5, cd5, you don't have knight to c6. Maybe this is on the way. cd5, if I do this immediately, I don't think it's so strong. Yeah, because after takes, the queen can take. And after here, maybe I have check, although there is queen to f8. There is queen to f8. And I don't know, I don't want to go for an endgame. I want to keep the queens on the board. Because I feel like I can mate my opponent. And also, I maybe am trying to play d6 to suffocate the black position. That is definitely an option. d6 followed by some, like, I don't know, knight b6. But the only issue with d6 that I'm not a fan of is that this knight can come to d7 after king to e8. And knights are really good blockaders because it's blockading, but it can also see very important squares, which I'm trying to use, right? My knight wants to invade c5, b6, and my e5 pawn is protecting d6. Okay, he takes. Let's take. This is such a crazy position. Such a crazy position. If king to e8, I think I take. Because if takes, queen e7... I can just take on g6 for a start. I am very aware my king is not the safest piece in the world. Oh yeah, but if queen e7, the king can never go to f8 because of bishop to b4 with pins. So that's also really useful because that will keep the king in the center of the board. This is a crazy position. Also, my bishop on d2 is excellent because it stops queen to g5, which could potentially force a queen trade in some lines. I know I can take on e4 for the time being, but in some lines that might be deadly. Like, I don't know, maybe I can't allow this or something along those lines. Also, no queen to f6 with attacks on f2. Although I could just go bishop to e3 anyway, defending and counter-attacking. For now, I can't do that because, like I said, queen to a5 is a problem. I don't think that works. I can take en passant. I can also take g6. Queen g6 take, check, here, not that impressive. I think taking en passant is the way. Because e6 is very weak. Although maybe I just allow this. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have allowed that. Although, as I said before, if the queen comes here, then I have bishop to e3. This position is nuts. Oh, wait, no, I can take. I can take. I can take. You can't do this because of this. So you have to move the king. And then things get dicey. Things get very dicey. Look how open both our kings are. They're just sitting in the middle of the board. Also, with takes, I could just go ahead and take the bishop too. As I said, this bishop is more of a liability than an asset. Also, maybe g3 is a threat, because the bishop only has one square to go to, which I control twice. Okay, king goes back to e8. Makes sense. Do I just have this? In the middle of all this chaos? Do I just win a piece? Maybe. Do I have anything else? Like, I don't know, rook c1? Well, I suppose that just invites knight c6, which black wants to play. So yeah, I don't really see a problem with g3. There's no checks on my king. And as I said earlier, black may have been up 2 pawns in one of the previous positions. Right now, black is up 1 pawn. But the problem is, I mean, these pawns aren't very impressive. But the biggest issue is that the rook and the knight are completely out of the game. I'm playing with 4 pieces, and black is playing with 2 pieces. And only one of them is any good. This bishop is an absolute liability, as we are finding out now. Taking on h4, I think, was probably a big mistake. Black might have been surviving had he not taken on h4. But you should not have been pawn grabbing there. The priority should have been getting the king safe, because as we're finding out, the king is far, far from safe. Far from safe. Okay, awesome. I don't see another option for black. I mean, taking here might be the best that he can do. Just winning a pawn. In which case, queen to g3, you can't take here, because I will win your knight and then your rook, because it's a check. So here, knight c6. I mean, there's a lot of moves I can play, but the best looks like something like queen to d6. Threatening this and defending the pawn, because the pawn is a major asset. Yeah, the queen is not that scary, I don't think. There's no threat. Wait, sorry, the knight is hanging. Queen takes, queen takes. Check here. Check here, check. I have to be winning. I have to be winning. I also have this, but then this. I've got to be winning there. I refuse to believe that black can survive. If this, then this, and then the bishop gets out. I could give this check. Ooh, that looks really strong. Yeah, let's do this. This looks really strong. Because this bishop is going to fall anyway, right? That's not a problem. I can always take with the pawn rather than the queen. But the point is, where are you going to put this king? You have to be very careful as well, because you can't allow my knight to move with check. Because if you do, let's say the king ends up on c8, then something like knight b6, then I take, and then everything's defended. And you're just going down a piece. This looks like the only move, because here I have this, and your king is in pretty big trouble. Pretty big trouble. So, king to d8, bishop to a5 check. Looks incredibly strong. hitting the king, of course, and just taking away valuable squares. There's no b6 because then I will take with a fork. I do have ideas of this as well, but, you know, things could get dicey giving up this diagonal to my king. Let's not forget, my king is also very, very vulnerable. There's just a queen lurking like a stone's throw away from the king, and I'm just trying not to get checked. But I think the nail in the coffin is going to be how bad these pieces are. Okay, let's give this check. I think this should be game over, almost. The king's going to be forced here, and then just rook d1 should end the game. But I do have other options. I could give this check. King has to go to d5. Knight to b6 check. King goes to c5. Okay. I don't really see why I wouldn't go for this. If this, then this. I don't have this because the knight covers that. Don't forget. Let's just go rook d1. Let's just go rook d1. Keep this nice and simple. Let's just win the queen. No need to overcomplicate things. I'm sure there's a quicker win here. Like, there's definitely some kind of checkmate I can go for. But there's also no need. There is also no need to do so. I don't think, because we can just mate him instead. And, sorry, not mate him. We can just win the queen instead. And once the queen comes off the board, then where is the counterplay? This has been an insane game. An absolutely insane game of chess. And as I said earlier on, I'm sure the computer is going to tell me and my opponent that we're both complete idiots. But, you know, that's just the nature of computer analysis. Okay, let's just deliver a check. Might as well. The queen's going nowhere. King here. Check. King is running out of squares. I know I can just go snag the queen. This isn't playable because the queen is pinned, so don't worry. King here. Check. Got to make sure this queen can never block successfully. Obviously, if queen d7, I'll just take. King c7. If here, then here. I could deliver a check with the rook, but then knight c6, and the queen is off the hook. So let's just go ahead and take the queen. Oh, then we have this, maybe? This isn't the cleanest, but it's, you know, it's moves. I missed the fact that bishop was still defending the rook, but the rook is also trapped, so that's fine. Can I distract the bishop? I don't think so. Let's deliver a check. My knight is actually dominated by this bishop for the time being. I mean, obviously, this is completely winning, but I have to be, like, a tiny bit careful. Tiny bit careful. Let's come here. It's generally good practice to just hit as many things as you possibly can with the queen, because if I hit enough things, he's not going to be able to defend all of them. There's also not bishop c3 check, because my knight covers that square. And the bishop is running out of squares quickly, which allows queen to c5 check, which picks up the rook. Of course, I could have just taken the pawn, but a rook is probably better than a pawn, right? I would say so. Okay, GG. Yeah, such an interesting game. One mistake, one miss, gotta be honest, is less than I was expecting. I assumed that I would have made way more mistakes. But alright, 77.9% accuracy for me, 71.6 for my opponent. Looks like I had a general lead, but I let him off the hook a couple times. So let's have a look through this game. So d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. Just stopping any knight to b5 shenanigans. I believe something like knight c6 just blunders the game, kind of. This is like a reverse fried liver. If this, you're losing. Oh, yeah, what am I on about? Of course you're losing. Knight h5, e3. Okay, yeah, white is just up a pawn. The knight's going to come here. All right, whatever. I go knight to f3, though. e3 is apparently better. Bishop f5, e3, e6. So knight to h4 is not the best. Knight to e5 is better. And if bishop d6... so then you go g4. I knew g4 was the idea in a lot of these lines, but I didn't know when. Take, take, take. f3, knight h6, e4. Yeah, okay. And then this is always met with this. So I go knight h4, though. Bishop g6. Taking is good. Here, knight b1? Excuse me? Okay, I go h3. g3 is apparently better. And if knight h5, bishop e5. If f6, I have queen g4. If take, then take. No? No, oh, queen e6. Queen e7. Queen c8. Queen d8. Queen b7. Knight d7, defending the rook. Bishop d3. If this, then this. Okay, that's just nuts. Absolutely nuts. But okay. I went h3 because I was concerned about this. So h3, bishop d6. Bishop g5, not the best. Rook h5. c5 is better, which is a common idea against the London. And here I should take and go bishop d3. Okay. Rook h5. We go h4, which is the best move, supporting the bishop. King d7 is a mistake. As I said, I did not understand that move in the slightest. c5 is good. Rook back is good. Knight bd7 is good. This is what I expected. Knight bd7. And then something like bishop e2. Rook h8. e4 is good. Bishop f3 can maybe be played. g3, as I mentioned. All decent moves. But king d7 is just like, what? Bishop e2 not the best. Queen f3, g4, e4. All good. What's the point after e4? I think bishop e7 is what I couldn't figure out. Bishop e2, rook h8. Then what? Bishop f6, bishop f6, ed5. Oh, I just win a pawn. I just win a pawn. And you can take here, but as we found out in the game, this pawn is not that useful to be winning. c3, getting the queen out, maybe. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the king is just in no man's land. But okay, bishop e2, rook h8, bishop f3, which is good. c6. e4 is okay. Not the best, though. Here, black needs to play bishop to e7. Everything else is bad, which he does. Taking is not so good. Because after this, I thought I had knight here. But the computer just wants knight d2. Knight d5. Bishop e7. King e7. c3. And I suppose the king is just terrible. Knight d7. g3. Queen c7. Queen e2. Oh. It's very difficult to judge this position, but I suppose only white can be better. We've got more space, and the king sucks. Anyway, bishop e7 is played, which is the best. I went bishop to f4. Bishop e3 is better. Okay. Bishop f4, though. Here you can't do this because of this. Or actually take and then this is good. What I thought was interesting was this, because if take, then take. But I actually just have bishop g5. The pin is renewed, and you're going to lose your knight. So queen b6 played. Here I go a3. Not the best move. Queen d2 is better. I saw this, but rejected it on the grounds of this position. And here the computer wants to castle into this. I mean, you can't take because of rook b1, sure. If queen back... Oh, wait, queen b4 offering a trade. I suppose I can actually just trade and go rook b1. a5, a3, something like take here, here, and then this hangs. So this, I can just take on f7. I can double up. Yeah, okay. The bishop pair is just unbelievable. a3, though. Competing was g5. Okay. Why? I mean, I get that you can't take, but bishop takes. Interesting. Knight e4, you can't do this because of this. So de4. Bishop e7, ef3. Bishop b4. No, sorry. Bishop b4. fg2. Rook g1. If takes, we have queen f. This is just a wild position again. I was more so concerned about de4. Knight e4, bishop e4, and queen to b2. But here, I calculated this position, and I was like, I have rook b7 at the end of the line, so this should be good. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. This is so cool. So I had seen that if king d8, I have bishop to a5, picking up the queen. The point, however, is it doesn't matter where you go. If you go to e8, I'll just take on e7 and then go bishop g5, bishop b4, and I'll pick up the queen. I force the king to a dark square. If king to c8, then I will do this. And if take, then this. And if king d8, I just castle? You can't take because I just give a check. If you take here, then I do this with discovered check. Queen d5 blocking, c4. What? And you're just dying. You're just dying. There's just nothing. Wow. Absolutely crazy lines. But queen b2 played. Knight a4 is the only move. Queen b5 and c4 has to be played. This is the line that I calculated. And I thought it should be winning. Queen a5 check, bishop d2. Queen d8 I didn't like. I thought queen c7 was better. Because rook b1 doesn't seem to work. There's b5. So I should play in this position. cd5, cd5. ed5, knight d5. Bishop d5, ed5, queen b3. Hitting this. Oh, how do you defend that? Because I'm also threatening this. Ah, okay. Very cool. But queen d8 played. I go rook b1, which is a mistake. I should have basically gone for this again, right? Just take, and queen to b3 with pressure, and I'm preparing this. Rook b1's a mistake then. Okay, b5 is the best move. b5. Whoa, what is this computer coming up with? It wants this. If this, then I take, and I just have too much pressure. If takes, ed5. Again, if takes, I take with check. So ed5, knight c5, take. I'd seen these kinds of lines, and I thought that this was decent for white. Because black's up a pawn, but he can't develop properly. Knight c6. a4 is playable. King f1. Rook c1. This is just a wild position. But the bishop pair against the knight pair should favor me in most positions because the game is so open. Rook a7, though. Here I chose e5, which is the best move. Knight b6 is also playable. And then e5. Okay, yeah, cool. That makes sense. e5, knight e4. Take is the best. And then queen g4 is a mistake. d5 immediately is better. I think the point is actually just to open up this diagonal. Because if this, the knight is defended. So if takes, yeah, just bishop to e3. And if this check is given, I just move the king. And if the rook retreats, I just do this. I did not see that. I went queen g4, which is a mistake. The only move is king e8, which is what I was expecting. And then I thought queen e4. And I'm not better, but I'm in the game. Well, okay. I'm better, but not by loads, basically. And it's equal material as well. So rook h4 played, which is just bad. I take. And then d5, knight b6 check is also good. Knight c5 check is also good, but d5 is the best. cd5, f5 makes no sense. ef6 and queen g6 are both good. Again, knight c5 is also good. I should have considered this a bit further because e6 is so weak now. I should have considered this. This, queen g6, if take, check, here, here. Oh, and there's just some kind of mate forming. Yeah, there's just mates forming, so... Okay. I went ef6, though. I went ef6. And for some reason, I didn't consider queen takes, but it's fine. Queen takes, I take on e6. You can't take because of this. I could also deliver this check first. And after king e7... Oh, I don't take here because of this, but I actually take here. That's interesting. And then the queen's just under attack. And where does the queen go? If you ever move the queen, I take here with check as well. Okay, well, de6, king e8, only move. g3 is the best move. Bishop e3 is also playable, but the bishop is lost. Queen d4 played, trying to counterattack. If this, I thought I was still winning after something like this. Well, firstly, I can actually just win the knight. Secondly, I can deliver a ton of checks. And there is just no way you're escaping this. You've got to be so careful in this position that you don't get mated somehow. But I just don't think it's avoidable because the rook and bishop are going to come into the game and just win. So I take on g6, though, which is the best move. King d8 is the best move. Bishop a5 check. King e7. Queen f7. King d6. There are forced mates. Rook c1, king b5, knight c3, king c5, knight e2, king b5, knight d4. Yeah, there are ways to force checkmate here. But I didn't see the point in going through all of them. I thought rook d1, far simpler, just win the queen. Bishop f6, bishop e4. I mean, I tried to manufacture some kind of checkmate. I couldn't find it, so I just took. Again, I could have been more accurate in this position, but I went for this because I thought it was easy. Get some pieces off the board, attack a ton of things, and my opponent blunders queen c5 check and resigns because now there is no hope whatsoever. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know a lot of you do love the London, so I hope you appreciated me giving it a go. If you want to see what I play against the London, check out the video up here. Really good system. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlist down here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in one of those videos.